So I've been telling people that Winter Moon is basically unplayable, and I've been saying that since spoiler season, and I've never seen this card in play. So I guess to determine if it actually sucks, we do need to play it for ourselves. So that's how that works. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today I am going to be testing Winter Moon. Now, Winter Moon is the next in the cycle of Back to Basics, Blood Moon, Alpine Moon style non-basic land hate. This one says players can't untap more than one non-basic land during their untap step. So what we're going to try to do today, courtesy of Chris, is to try and combine Winter Moon with Back to Basics to create a deck that can very consistently lock down the non-basic lands that are critical to the mana bases of Legacy decks. And I think Chris's idea of combining Winter Moon and Back to Basics at the same time is a good idea, but I don't think the initial deck list was good as a whole. And they said as much in an email, like, hey, this is going to need some tuning up. So we did some pretty drastic tuning. Let's take a look at what the starting point was. So in case you're not familiar with Back to Basics, non-basic lands don't untap during their controller's untap steps. So this is probably better than Winter Moon in most circumstances, but it is a mana more. And we can have a Winter Moon come down as soon as turn 1 if we do have an Ancient Tomb. I think the fundamental problem with Chris's first build here is that Chris is trying to get too cute with the synergies. I think if we play Winter Moon and Back to Basics, we are trying to play those as standalone cards. I don't think we need to go as deep as things like Rishadan Dockhand and Harrier Strix to go and just try to lean in further. The problem with so many cards in this deck is I don't think they are good standalone cards. Reservoir Kraken, we're going to come back to you in a second. I think you're kind of cool. So, I would be kind of embarrassed to play these in a Legacy deck list. I don't think Malevolent Hermit is particularly strong unless you really, really care about both sides of it. So if you are some sort of mono blue omniscience deck and you care about the counterspell on the front and you care about the counterspell-ish static ability on the back, this is good. Otherwise, I don't think this is great. With a creature count of 24, Aether Vial is playable, but it's probably at the lower end of what is acceptable. So back from my D&T days, when I started getting to 23 or 24 creatures in an Aether Vial deck, I started to get nervous, and there's just a giant pile of non-creature things here. And also some creatures that you would prefer not to vial in because you would rather cast both sides of them. And Sleep Cursed Fairy isn't exactly the most exciting thing either. Now, Reservoir Kraken is some very interesting spicy tech. I had never seen this card before. And I do like Kitesail Larcenist, but ultimately, I think there's too many bad cards in this deck to enable the idea. So what I want to do is keep this 12 card core. This is the thing that I don't want to touch. But I want to rebuild the threat base so that after I lock down my opponent's lands, I can kill them in just a couple of attack steps. And I think this matters a lot because if I am playing these 2/1, 1/1, 3/3 creatures, that's a long time. I want my opponent dead right the fuck now. And so here is my rebuild of this deck. That 12 card cord is the same, but I want to kill my opponent in 2 turns after I lock down their lands. And I think that's what Phyrexian Dreadnought is for. So we are going to skirt this thing's triggered ability with either Stifle or Dress Down. And we can do the same thing with our good friend Nulldrifter. Now, Nulldrifter's evoke portion is also very relevant in this deck, as sometimes we will just perfectly be happy paying 3 mana to draw 2 cards in the mid game, and we might drag the deck the game on long enough that we can cast the 7 mana side of this if we don't line up stuff. I think if we are playing a blue deck in Legacy, we really do want to be having a cantrip suite of some kind. I tried building this deck as a deck that kept more of the original Stompy elements and then played Murktide Regent. But if I want to keep this core of 4 Vexing Bauble to make my stuff uncounterable, 4 Wintermoon, 4 Back to Basics, that's a lot of things that like don't flip Delvers, that don't work with Murktide Regent. So ultimately, after futzing around with the numbers a bit, I decided that I didn't really think it was going to work. And thinking about my rebuild, maybe this should just be Dismember. I only have 12 actual creatures. Let's keep the body here. As far as the sideboard goes, it's a little awkward to play like truly free spells alongside Vexing Bauble, but I think it's a like you gotta do what you gotta do in the current metagame sort of thing. Although I'm gonna do one tiny change. I think I'm going to add. No, I don't want to add 1 Underground Sea to make this payable with mana because I am a Back to Basics Wintermoon deck. No, JK, I think I'm just gonna live with the awkwardness here. Could be Fairy? It could be Fairy. Alright, yeah, we'll replace Surgical with Fairy. It's not gonna be quite as good in some of the combo matchups, but we don't have that many counter spells anyway, so hopefully that's fine. So Flusterstorm, I think, remains a good option for our Vexing Bauble deck. That is just good interaction. And I think even though we are a Vexing Bauble deck, like we are just going to need the emergency break that is Force of Will in some cases. And with main deck Dress Down, we've got Urza Saga tokens covered, and we have some degree of temporary removal for creatures with Brazen Borrower. Hopefully that feels like enough. So let's see if we can lock out some lands and keep our opponents from casting spells. And let's see how good Wintermoon and Back to Basics really are. Wintermoon absolutely slaps today, and you decide that you need some copies. Please check out toamagic.com and use promo code ThrabenU when you do to save 5% on your order. And no matter what you're ordering, you always get free shipping, so really check them out. They are a great store. I buy my own stuff from them. It's moon time. Okay, this seems perfectly fine. I'll keep this one. I think I will just Vexing Bauble on turn 1, stop some nonsense from my opponents if they are doing anything particularly unfair, and then on turn 2 I will just fire off a Ponder looking for a land, and we'll go from there. My opponent's Wasteland, not going to be the strongest card in the world here. I'm expecting that my opponent is a Troll of Khazad Doom deck if they are just opening on Wasteland Pass. I am going to Ponder to look at 4 different lands here. 4 different cards, 4 lands here. Beautiful, yes. I probably want 2 of these. I'm going to draw the Scalding Tarn immediately, though, in case I want to fetch after I see something scary happen. Alright, there's the troll that I was expecting. Oh, we are playing against yet another Dimir Rescaminator deck, presumably. The Brazen Borrower that I have is quite good. I'm just going to let that happen here. And I'll take another land draw. I know that my Brazen Borrower is going to resolve. I think I am okay with casting a Brainstorm here. Because if I find Stifle, I can just shift to the beatdown and ignore the troll. I did not. I am thinking about whether or not I actually care about this Wintermoon. I'm always putting back 1 island. I think the Wintermoon is the worst card in my hand. Like, it's just keeping a Wasteland from untapping. I don't know, maybe it does a lot of damage over the course of a game. Okay, I think it is the wrong play. I think it is objectively the wrong play, but, like, let's test the new card. We know it resolves. It does make it much harder to, like, filter through my opponent's deck with their cantrips. It makes it much harder to cast things like Psychic Frog. I would really prefer Back to Basics in this spot. But we do what we gotta do. Daze is hard castable on this right now. I really want a Petty Theft in upkeep. I'm going to Brainstorm and hope that I hit a land and that my opponent does not have Orcish Bowmaster. Orcish Bowmaster is going down a lot in popularity as Psychic Frog is eating up its spots. Good God. Alright. That's real bad. I'm going to pass turn. So I'm going to let that Brainstorm resolve. I can't be dazed right now. My opponent could Troll Cycle after this, but I really don't want to get dazed right now. I have a couple turns worth of shit that I need to draw through. So get out. I wanted to do this in upkeep to make it less likely that my opponent could just immediately cycle. There's no guarantee that they will immediately cycle. They don't. Wow. Now, my opponent may have, like, an island and a swamp in their deck. And now, in the next couple of games, the Winter Moons are much, much worse. So there's the Troll Cycle. And there's a new Animate Dead. Oh, that's fine. Like, I can bounce it out of play again. It's just a little annoying. Boop. And we'll pass turn. Wastelands get to just chill. But until I start putting pressure on my opponent's life total, this pseudo lockout of Winter Moon doesn't actually matter that much. So now there's a basic land, so my opponent gets to untap 3 lands every turn. That's in play. So I am still working drawing through this crap. I don't want to evoke a Nulldrifter because that being under Dauthi Voidwalker is very annoying. Do I just want to continue down the tempo line and Brazen Borrower yet again? Or do I just want to play my own threat? Nah, I think I'll just cast a Brazen Borrower. Yeah, and at this stage, I feel like my Winter Moon is not really accomplishing anything anymore. And my opponent will know to play around it for next game, too. I might be boarding it out, to be perfectly honest. It is another Wasteland. I will take 3. 11. I'm kind of expecting this to be dazed. There it is. So that Nulldrifter does not go under Dauthi Voidwalker, I'm going to Petty Theft Dauthi Voidwalker out of play, and then just draw 2 cards. Deck. Fucking come on, man. 3 Winter Orbs, 2 back to basics. We are a third of the way through the deck. I have not seen a single Stifle or Dress Down effect. Opponent is getting Undercity Sewers, which is slow against Winter Moon. Opposing Brainstorm. My opponent can then use their Surveil land to get rid of a card they don't like if they can't fetch. Oh, it's just an Atraxa. Well, it's real bad if that gets into play. Oh, hey, it's real bad. So that just kills me in 2 turns. My Winter Moon back to basics type stuff isn't doing anything. Animate Dead, Grief, Reanimate, Entomb. Am I dead? Okay, my opponent is not griefing me immediately. I guess once they see the Nulldrifter, like, oh, sure. Once they see the Nulldrifter, Phyrexian Dreadnought is not much of a stretch of the imagination. So Archon of Cruelty in the yard. A known Reanimate there. Yikes. So cast this, draw 2. That is a Dress Down. This is 7 in the air. I'm at 7. I can Dress Down, play a Dreadnought that would kill my opponent in 1 more attack step. That doesn't do it. I guess I am trying to block with a Brazen Borrower. Actually, I should do that before my opponent untaps, because of days specifically. The opponent's got more land. I don't think the additional land matters much. Opponent griefs. Vexing Bauble takes care of that. You're just going to reanimate that immediately. Oh, it's different art for grief too. There's a reanimate on the grief. I can Dress Down, that doesn't really get me anywhere, so my opponent gets to take a peek. I, of course, lose the Dress Down. And we need to cast a Brazen Borrower. I block to stay alive, but this is giving my opponent a lot of life, turning on future reanimates. Oh, it's another Animate Dead for Archon of Cruelty. I'll discard a Winter Moon, please. I don't think I can possibly win from here. I'm not even going to draw another card with Vexing Bauble. Even if I answer one of these creatures, there's just another thing around for Winter Moon. Out. think 2 Kitesail Larcenist, 3 Fairies in. I think keep back to basics. Nulldrifter is kind of a kick in the teeth versus Douthie Voidwalker. It is draw on cast, that's nice. It's also bad versus reanimate. Not loving how this is conceptually lining up. This is a reasonable opening hand. I am perfectly fine keeping this. So I either have turn 2 dress down into turn 3 Phyrexian Dreadnought, or I have a turn 3 back to basics, just kind of depending on where we are at in terms of tempo. I can also bounce something out of play if necessary. But it looks like we're going to do a little draw go. And I think I am okay with that. No end of turn troll cycle or entomb nonsense. I think since I have 2 dress downs, I am a-okay just firing one off at the end of turn here. Opponent troll cycling in response. Not sure why. Here's my dress down. I am okay if I get dazed. I do not. There is a stifle. Let's do something here. I think I just play my threat. That is unfortunately a force of will. So that's that. I'll sacrifice my dress down. What land did my opponent get? Alright, they got a basic swamp. My back to basics loses a lot of oomph given that. It's also just not a land that I can stifle. You would like to reanimate Phyrexian Dreadnought. Yes. Yes, you may absolutely do that. Would you like to sacrifice Phyrexian Dreadnought now? Thanks for playing. Oof. Oof. I don't think I'm interested in Brazen Borrowing that. If I play this, it doesn't do anything right now. It'll do stuff later. It drops my Stifles to do that, so I think no. There is a fetch land. Say no to mana for my opponents. I imagine that was for a hard cast Grief. You may ponder. And no additional land drop. I don't think I am interested in using any of my resources currently. With another island, I think I am comfortable throwing one of these out there for the future. Again, it does not do anything right now. There is an entomb. If I get punished for not holding up dress down, my stifle will help a lot though. But you know, there's still days and force of will and stuff. That is a reanimate on Atraxa. I will respond to this trigger with a stifle, so my opponent does not get to refuel, and we'll see if they have a counterspell to back this up. They do not. So this is just a 7/7 Atraxa in play. We've got a ponder. These are probably my opponent's only 2 basic lands, and ponder shuffles. Fairy is a touch late. I think I am interested in turning Atraxa into a treasure token. I don't need to do that much damage to my opponent to beat them. Boop. Nice treasure. We'll see if my opponent has a cool play. No immediate removal spell for Kitesail Larcenist is probably good news for me. There is a hard cast Grief. Don't have Dress Down available right now. I think Brazen Borrower is the best card in my hand. My opponent agrees. Disgusting. My opponent goes to 6. I dress down. I will immediately convert that into Phyrexian Dreadnought. And call it a turn. Alright, hell yeah. If my opponent is playing around my back to basics actively, I don't even know if those are good. Like, should I just do this? My opponent's deck is just so low to the ground with like a single mana reanimate often being a standalone win condition. It's a little awkward to like play some force alongside Bauble. I think I like Bauble to protect my own stuff though. Alright. I am perfectly fine with this opening hand. I have Dress Down into Nulldrifter as a thing that I am capable of doing. I have Fairy to defensively stop something like an Atraxa from coming into play. And I have Stifle for some mana. Ooh, my opponent is going to 5 as well. That is favorable for me. 4 even. Land, Grief, black card, reanimate. Get there. Seriously, that kills me because they Nulldrifter on turn 1. Or no, that wouldn't get there because I Fairy. Okay, it is a Grief. I imagine I lose Fairy here and then my opponent reanimates their Grief. Yep, that is how my opponent is starting off this game. Yep. I'm not sure what my opponent goes after from here. Could be Ponder. Could be my Nulldrifter to just put it in graveyard so that if they run hot and top deck another reanimation spell, they can get my Nulldrifter. That is the line that they are going to take. So let's try to find a Phyrexian Dreadnought and just end this game. I don't like that stuff. It is a Brainstorm. It is a land. My opponent should fetch right now to play around the Stifle that they know about. They don't. So I will just make a land drop and pass the turn. Oh. I mean, I'll take it, but, you know, this was onboard information. These are great cards. I will be shuffling. I think I will get rid of Island Flusterstorm and then fetch to Stifle. Boop. So now my opponent has taken themselves off of blue mana. I have a safety net for if they Lucksack into Reanimate. It is a Troll. So my opponent can now Surveil. And they junk a Grief. I'll take 3. I'm in perfectly fine shape. I am fine with doing that. I can't be dazed right now. So we'll cantrip. Make a 12-12. This was more of a game than it should have been for my opponent mulliganing to 4. A new Troll. Finding Underground Sea. I get smacked for 3. My opponent needs some sort of removal spell to stay alive. It can't be an Edict, though. I just beat that, so it needs to be some sort of Fatal Push type card. You're at 2. Brainstorm is fine. Sudden Edict is not commonly played, but that would do it here. Although I would just then kill my opponent with Brazen Borrower as a flash creature. I will take 3. I don't care if this is Daze. I don't care if this is an Edict. I don't care if this is Orcish Bowmasters. Darkness. Black Fog. Send them. We have gotten the GG from our opponent in chat. And there is the concession. So we win this one, but at what cost? Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists. And they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out. All right. Do I believe in Brainstorm? Do I believe? I'm going to reluctantly believe. I think on the play I would just mulligan this one, but on the draw where I get to see an extra card or two before I cast this Brainstorm, it feels acceptable. Okay. All right. Why don't we just relax over there, okay? Let's just be cool. All right. So my opponent is playing some sort of fast artifact deck. I can shuffle off that Brainstorm. I am unsure that I want to cast that Brainstorm right now. I would really like to potentially just shuffle away these Winter Moons later on in the game. Like, I could cast it and redraw one of them and get rid of one with Polluted Delta next turn. Mana Confluence, though? Okay. But why? Why are we doing this? With the defense grid and the fast mana, it's super weird. Is this like a way for my opponent to discard Echo of Eons? My Winter Moon doesn't do anything here. I am going to Brainstorm. Oh, good God. Go back 1 Winter Moon, 1 Island, batch, get a new island, ponder. Vexing Bauble is probably very good. I'm going to leave that on top of my deck. I say probably because I'm not 100% sure. I'll take 1 in combat from the frog. My opponent gets to draw a new card. Okay. So there's a discarded Malevolent Hermit. there's gotta be some bullshit going on in this deck, and it is just a matter of time until I figure out what it is. Okay, there's just the disturb side of that. Oh, my opponent is a Vexing Bauble deck as well. Sure. And now that my opponent has played a Vexing Bauble, I feel like my need to play one has gone down significantly. My opponent can just untap their Urza Saga, unless I back to basics. I can either Phyrexian Dreadnought this turn or back to basics. I think I back to basics so I never have to deal with Urza Saga. Bam. Cool. Winter Moon continues to be bad. Back to basics continues to be back to basics. And by that I mean it's fine, but not one of the better things that you could be doing in the format. It's very powerful when it works. This Psychic Frog is unlikely to get flying, so I guess I've got that going for me. I think I have like 3 Null Rods in my sideboard. Those seem like they're gonna be good. Aha, yeah, it is. It is Echo. So my opponent can just make a giant Psychic Frog. Discarding Anji's Ravager. Okay. Opponent is out here fucking cooking. That's for sure. They have left Echo in Graveyard. And their stuff doesn't untap. I guess they can just get LED off Urza Saga next turn. I think I have to Brazen Borrower Psychic Frog out of play. Kind of hate Defense Grid right now, because I can't just do it on my opponent's turn. But if my opponent draws 7 and then Psychic Frog slaps me, that just feels like the end of the world. Ugh, I hate it. They just have to worry about 2 cards discard that's 6 power plus another 7. So that is just lethal in the air. Yeah. Yuck. It's just such an incredibly inefficient use of my mana. And then, since I presumably am about to lose my hand, I will do an end of turn dress down to stop these abilities. That makes the Dreadnought that I was hoping to use to stabilize much, much, much worse. Psychic Frog enabling madness stuff is cool. I really like my opponent's deck here. Alright, so there is the expected LED. Vexing Bauble is cycled. Second LED. Oh, that's so much artifact mana. That means that my opponent can just replay the Psychic Frog first. And then Echo afterwards. What a disaster. The opponent does go for cracking both LEDs. I can put a 12/12 in play. And that's fun and cool. But we'll just see how bad the rest of this turn is. An Emery? That's Emery, sure. Curse of Fool's Wisdom? Are you for real right now? They are for real right now with a second Echo of Aeons. You know, I don't feel like this should be working, but I'm not even mad. Take your screenshot, friend. You did the thing. I am dead. Okay. So I like Null Rod. I conceptually like things that aren't fairy. Winter Moon is going out. Vexing Bauble is going out. Like, my opponent is comfortable playing that card, so I don't know, maybe they're in control of it, though. Like, when I am on the play and can shut off all their artifact mana, maybe that's perfectly fine still. I just, like, still have defense grids to worry about, so, like, how good are these really? I feel like I need those. I feel like I can go down one of these for that. I might still just need Force of Wills to answer things like Psychic Frogs. So we're not going to get cute with Nulldrifters. I'll play some Forces, but maybe not max out on them. Like, Force alongside Vexing Bauble is also really weird. I am going to keep this and hope that Vexing Bauble buys me some time. And I think on the draw, I don't play Vexing Bauble, question mark. I just load up on more Force effects. We're in unknown territory here, folks. All right, let's play our Vexing Bauble to start things off. My opponent tanked for a little while on their mulligan. I've got like an Urza. Well, weird. Okay. I definitely want this on the draw. Go down a dress down for that, and then the question is, like, do I want Flusterstorm beyond that? I have literally no idea. There's like a lot of creatures that I care about. Maybe I do this instead. I don't know. This is turn 1 Vexing Bauble, turn 2 back to basics, unless I feel like I need to pump the brakes with Force of Will. This is pretty good. I can even like pitch the Brainstorm and keep the back to basics. Yeah, this is better than I thought even. Alright, opponent, do your thing. Mana. Mana. Gamble. I'll let that resolve. I just win if my opponent goes for an Echo and I Force of Will it. They have discarded a Psychic Frog, which is probably not what they went for. Yeah, they are going for an Echo here. Force of Will. Pitch Brainstorm. Good game. So, Island into Vexing Bauble. And I have back to basics as soon as I want it. Which I might not do immediately for Ancient Tomb-based reasons. I guess Hullbreacher is a card that I should have considered more strongly for this deck. Yeah, the opponent is just giving us the GGs here. They said they mistook a card in their hand for another LED. We'll take it. So this is no lands, auto mulligan. Yes. This is a keep. I think the Brainstorm is the worst one in the hand. I think I am going to lead on Vexing Bauble. This hedges against a handful of combo decks and makes my stuff uncounterable in the future, keeps me from getting griefed. And we'll see what my opponent's got for me. Island Mirror. So my opponent has led on basic Island. I don't know that Wintermoon is going to be good. I could just Nulldrifter as a draw 2 that costs me some life. I'm kind of into it. It's awkward if my opponent is just a fucking scam deck again. But they're pretty unlikely to open on basic Island. I think I'm just gonna ponder though. Like, I would love to turn. Oh god, no. No. We hit a Scalding Tarn, which is not what I want. Or mana efficiency. I'm going to play the Wintermoon. I am not excited about it against basic Island. I can still untap my Ancient Tomb each turn. Opponent has said this is the spice, isn't it? Oh yeah. No, we've got some spice today. Don't you sweat it. I will let YouTube determine how many Scovilles worth of pepper spice we've got going on. Oh, it's ninjas instead. Okay, so my Vexing Baubles have some text. Fucking Wintermoons, man. It's fucking Wintermoons. I'll draw 2 cards. Stifle, why? I guess I hadn't considered that if I played the island out ahead of time, I could draw Stifle off the Nulldrifter trigger. Alright. Like, lesson learned, I guess. Now we know for the future. So, Commander Ninjutsu, which is a trigger. I kind of just wish I had a Nulldrifter, but like, I'll take this tempo play. So then we're going to see a fetch and the Changeling played out. Again, Wintermoon does nothing against a single non-basic land. Okay, we need to switch phases first, but then we'll see that. And I've got a lot of nothing going on. I think I am just going to cycle this Bauble accordingly. Fine. I'm going to take some damage to do this so that I can potentially, like, cantrip fetch afterwards. Sure, I'm glad we have these Wintermoons. Should have played Scalding Tarn over Island there, but I was busy being mad. We are still 2-0 in this league somehow, so, you know, that's a thing. Alright, get punched by Yuriko. Opponent starts drawing cards, reveals Daze. My opponent had a bunch of Ornithopters. Oh my god, they had so many Ornithopters that I was holding back. That's very funny. Deck. I could legitimately just die this turn to Yuriko triggers if my opponent has some, like, Force of Will caliber cards on top of library. Oh no. How many more ninjas are coming in? There's an Ingenious Infiltrator, and there's another one. So 2, 4, 6 initial damage plus all those triggers. I'll see if my opponent reveals anything cool, but I don't think I beat 4 Yuriko triggers plus my opponent drawing however many cards that is. It's basically infinity cards. So I'm at 5. Yuriko Trigger. Brainstorm. Psychic Frog. Oh god, Psychic Frog is good here. Alright, first thing we do, pull 4 Winter Moons out of the deck. Get the fuck out. Kitesail Larcenist in as removal. How do we feel about Vexing Bauble? It has text. So at a minimum, I'm doing this. My opponent now knows that I'm playing Winter Moon, so they're going to fetch basics in a way that is pretty actively harmful to me. I think I do this. You can consider Null Rod for Retrofitter Foundry as an alternative thing to do with Thopters. I don't think I'm going to start out with that. It's probably in the deck, but I haven't seen a Ninja's build since Psychic Frog came out, so I don't know for sure. Okay, so I can Brazen Borrower an Initial Ninja out of play, and then try to assemble some Nulldrifter stuff. I don't think this hand is insane or anything, but I also don't know that it is worth mulliganing. Sometimes I also just like Stifle an early fetch land, and that alone is incredibly damning. That's not a fetch land. Okay, there is Retrofitter Foundry. Ancient Tomb immediately into back to basics is probably not what I am looking for, but it does let me Nulldrifter into Stifle next turn. My opponent plays a blue fetch here. I have a really weird decision. Just two basics naturally. Strunk. Yeah, that's fine. I think I just don't use the Brazen Borrower in response. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. So, cast with Evoke. Draw 2 cards. Awkward. I accept. I get pinged to 17. Then my opponent gets 2 more of these triggers, putting me to 15 and growing this Orc Army token a bit. And then once this enters the battlefield, I will stifle this trigger. Hope we don't get dazed or anything. Now I have a 4/4 flyer with Annihilator 1 in play. My opponent can turn this Ornithopter into a 4/4 creature at end of turn. And I just kind of have to decide what I am doing with the Nulldrifter. Casting it again later. That is a great tempo play. That's another 4/4. It's taking 8 here. That's pretty rough. Force of Will is late. So I can Brazen Borrower a 4/4, take 8. I can try to Nulldrifter my way out of this, but I think my opponent just came out of the gates too quickly here. GG's. Okay, hand is perfectly keepable. I would like to find something to do on turn 2 if possible. Would I like 2 of these 3 cards? Probably not. So I will just take a random redraw. Brainstorm is unexciting. What now? Okay. So is this a flex slot in Moon Stompy? Dress down's pretty cool. Back to basics also looking okay. I think I'm just going to pass the turn and leave up Dress Down just in case anything gets weird. Soul Guide Lantern. Sure. Painter? Cast Brainstorm. Resolve very quickly. I don't know whether or not I need Vexing Bauble. I am going to assume I don't. And just fetch that stuff away, slam a back to basics. It's not doing anything immediately. Hopefully it does something cool in the future. Oh, I guess we're dressing down then. Drawing a card, playing a Dreadnought. I've got a 12/12. What does your deck do? Like, it feels like Urza Saga is in the deck. I'm getting Painter vibes. Yeah, it is Painter. With just kind of a weird flex slot land. Back to basics is incredibly damning. And I just have a... excuse me. I have a bunch of endgame card draw that can just come after this. Didn't really want another back to basics, but it might be good if some sort of red elemental blast thing ends up happening. I guess my opponent could block, but they're probably not getting to unearth mana. Definitely not with the things that I know about. Alright, they are gonna soak up a little bit of damage here. Take 10. It's still a 2-turn clock. And then, boop. Opponent has 1 mana. So the out that I'm thinking of is Ancient Tomb, Painter, Red Elemental Blast. And they don't have it. 3x Null Rod in, Kitesail Larcenist in, 4x Wintermoon out. How is Vexing Bauble not irrelevant, I think is how I would put it. I think I'm going to do this and fill with a couple of Force of Wills. I'm like not the most excited about Force of Will against a, 5 to 8 Elemental Blast deck. But I do need to not die sometimes. 3 Force of Wills. Final answer. Turn 2 Null Rod is perfectly good. Back to basics to dampen the power of Urza Saga is really good. I'm quite happy with this hand. I'd love to ponder for land drop 3. Yeah, that's fine. That's not unexpected. Finishing my thought. My thought was going to be I would love to ponder for land drop number 3 or Force of Will. Let's just shuffle that. That stuff's fine. I'm going to try to high roll a little better here. That is high rolling much better. That is a turn 2 12-12. If I don't want to Null Rod, I might just want to slam Null Rod immediately. Back to basics, looking good. I get the Soul Cauldron. Null Rod looking good. Yeah, you can chip away at my graveyard. That's fine. Okay, there is my next land drop as well. So we are just going to curve Null Rod into back to basics, and then we'll worry about winning the game later. With a Null Rod and a back to basics in play, I am very much not worried about getting got. Oh, my opponent does not even have more mana. That's rough for them. Nulldrifter plus Stifle is also just a very good turn. Again, though, I don't think I am in any rush to win. Let's just bait out a counterspell this turn if my opponent has a red Elemental Blast. And then I can work on either Nulldrifter or a Phyrexian Dreadnought next turn, depending on what I think is appropriate at the time. Vexing Bauble is fine. Oh, wow. No play on 3 mana either? That's pretty rough. I think I'll hold that one. I think it is the best value for me to just evoke this creature, draw 2 immediately, and then if I draw another Stifle, I have a red Elemental Blast situation covered. That makes me look real smart. All right, pass turn. And then, I just have Annihilator going. And this is not blue once it is in play. So we just bullied our opponent pretty damn hard. All right. Slightly slow, but perfectly reasonable hand here. Just playing against more scam, probably. Cool. I would like to look 4 cards deep for Stifle. Nope. Vexing Bauble is probably not doing anything here. It does something if my opponent is playing a combo deck rather than scam. But the leagues are just absolutely filthy with Griefs and Psychic Frogs right now. Alright, opponent is passing the turn. So, do I Vexing Bauble around Daze? I think so. I think I'm interested in this. I could Brainstorm first. I think I can just cast Brainstorm next turn and usually be pretty happy with that. It is in play. We've got an upkeep fetch or a basic land. Another basic land. Fuck me, I guess. I am still just going to, I think, play a back to basics here. If my opponent uses resources on it, I think I am ultimately good with that. It is a Daze. That is fine. Their Wasteland's not doing a lot here. That is a hard cast Grief. This, unfortunately, can put a Nulldrifter in the graveyard for the purposes of a reanimate spell. They're just taking my Brainstorm instead. Let's Nulldrift this turn. Just take my draw 2, see if we randomly hit a Stifle to spike. I don't. We drew god-awful Wintermoon. I'll pass turn. If my opponent has a reanimate, I bait the reanimate on Nulldrifter. And then I just Brazen Borrower the Nulldrifter back to my hand. So I guess they know that that would be coming. They have seen my hand. I'll take 3. We're more afraid of something like a Psychic Frog coming down. Okay, it is Animate Dead. And Force of Will is off, so we are probably safe. I guess there could be a Force of Negation. Petty Theft, Nulldrifter. Cool. I don't think I play another immediately. Do I want to Brazen Borrower and start pressuring life totals or play Wintermoon? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? I guess I start pressuring life totals. I might use 2 Ancient Tomb taps given my hand. Opponent has so much mana. They are probably unhappy about that. Winter Moon continues to be hot trash. My opponent is welcome to hardcast a Force of Will on this if they would like. They could also just have something like a Brazen Borrower. That's a card. 3. Opponent goes to 16. If my opponent Force of Wills, I still draw 2. If my opponent dazes, I still draw 2. I think I accept. So on cast, draw 2. Alright, there's the Force of Will. That's a whole lot of nothing, unfortunately. My opponent can Wasteland me, so I can't Nulldrifter again. I am at 7. It is a Reanimate on my Nulldrifter. Not great for me. And then my opponent fetched, so it looks like they have another Force of Will. Fuck, okay. Well, basically, if they have another Force of Will, I'm going to die. I think I am going to take the line that is good if they don't have the Force of Will, rather than trying to do a, like, Nulldrifter line. Yeah, that's frustrating. Brazen Bar is very good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've played a land drop. I have not played a land drop. So I'll pass turn. Block Grief. I am fine sacrificing my Ancient Tomb to this Nulldrifter trigger. My opponent should Wasteland me right here, so I can't do that, but they missed it. Because then I have to sacrifice a real permanent. I do still have to figure out how I beat the Grief. Fuck. Yeah. Animate Dead trigger. We will stifle that trigger. Just say no. Let me Animate Dead. Remains in play. Ancient Tomb. Not great. So I now need to deal with Grief. That means doing this with Evoke. And then drawing into another Brazen Borrower? Fuck. Okay. So this gets evoked. Petty Theft that back to hand. I get a redraw. I don't think I can do anything with it, though. Yeah. So I unfortunately come up just a little bit short here. 4x Wintermoon out. 2 Larcenist in. Opponent knows about Wintermoon and Back to Basics, and we'll play around them. I need some amount of this type of stuff. This is my starting point, and then I decide if I want Force of Will or not. Force of Will can be really important for stopping some of the Psychic Frog type stuff. My opponent doesn't always open on a bunch of basic lands, though. Let's try playing Back to Basics on the play and getting rid of them on the draw. I have an exceptionally mediocre looking hand here. I think it's still a keep. I don't feel the best about it. I'm just not keeping up with Grief Reanimate nonsense. Alright, so it seems like the worst stuff is not happening. I don't have anything good to do with my mana in this next turn cycle. I'm going to try to just brainstorm here. I don't really care if I trade with anything. Vexing Bauble is fine. It doesn't matter too much what I put back here. I guess the second card deep that I bury matters for if Vexing Bauble gets countered and then my opponent griefs me. I should have buried Back to Basics. But it feels like I am just going to be brainstorming for one of my 3 fairies. Yeah, there's Archon of Cruelty. Yeah. So here's the brainstorm. It did not hit. I can Kitesail Larcenist the Archon out of play. That's not the end of the world. Let's hide my most relevant cards on top here. So the Archon happens. I'm gonna junk Nulldrifter. I'm gonna junk Dreadnought. It can't be reanimated as easily. EE for 1. You got it. So this resolves, and I turn Archon into a treasure. Goodbye. This has a very tenuous hold on the game. My opponent just sacked it so that they can animate dead it. Cool. Thanks, I hate it. I sacrifice a creature. About to draw back to basics, which is not good here. I can dress down to stop a trigger here. Don't know how relevant that is. I think I'm going to keep the Nulldrifter and try to get a little lucky. Sure. And then we get a Ponder. So it seems like I am trying to hit Brazen Borrower to bounce that out of play. Is Nulldrifter hitting Stifle good enough? Seems like no, right? Because attacker creature on attack. So what I'm thinking about then is, do I win more games where I get lucky and rip Brazen Borrower next turn and shut off these Underground Seas? Or do I win more games where I draw 2 cards this turn? I think I win more games where I play back to basics. It requires me to get lucky next turn. I either need to draw Brazen Borrower, cantrip towards Brazen Borrower, or evoke this into Brazen Borrower plus land. Oh, right, this trigger makes me discard this. I wonder if what I said is just still true then. That's 6, and I have to decide whether or not I do the marginal fetch to thin, or whether I hold for a cantrip into a cantrip. I think I hold for cantrip into cantrip. Is it another fucking reanimate? Oh. Well, I don't know why you did that. I also don't know why you did that. Oh, I see. It's to get the Underground Sea untapped. Sure. So I get a Vexing Bauble redraw into Nulldrifter. Fetch to do that. I do not know what I am playing towards anymore. So I evoke this, draw 2 cards, but I can't Brazen Borrower as an out. Yeah, I can Stifle, but then this attack trigger just gets me. Damn. GG's. Best deck continues to be best deck. Alright, so where do we fall at the end of this league? Well, Wintermoon sucks. We have confirmed that Wintermoon sucks. I do not believe that Wintermoon ever successfully kept a land from untapping in the entire league. I took a break for lunch, so I might be forgetting something, but I believe we boarded out all 4 of them in most or all of our rounds. And I believe it was just incredibly detrimental to have Wintermoon in my deck. Now, I loved Vexing Bauble into Back to Basics conceptually. I think like this making something this strong uncounterable is something very good. However, Blue-Black Scam just has 2 basics in it. And if they have them or know that they need to get them and they're not fetching Underground Seas, a huge portion of my deck doesn't do anything. We did put up a positive finish in this league despite being paired against Blue-Black Scam a lot, and like for that reason, I give what's here a shaky thumbs up. You know, maybe you play 4 Hull Breachers, maybe you play a few more cantrips, maybe you play some other standalone threat, some sort of Murktide Regent style card, maybe you put in a couple Dismembers, maybe the Force of Wills go in the main deck despite Vexing Bauble. I think you've got some options. Chris, I think I like Vexing Bauble and Back to Basics together. I loved a pile of Brazen Borrowers to bounce things out of play, but ultimately, you know, is what we are doing here better than adding black to our deck for actual removal spells, adding black to the deck for Psychic Frog? And, you know, maybe it's not. And I guess in the other direction, going with the changes I made, you know, is this better than being in white, where you also have access to Swords to Plowshares and Gatekeeper Thrall to enable these? And I'm not sure that it is. But there was some power here, and this was, I think, a very intricate league. The Kitesail Larcenist did a lot of work, although it not being true removal and the Archon being able to come back was absolutely some bullshit. I mean, I approve of it, like it was a really cool play, but nevertheless, it was some bullshit. Folks, I hope you enjoyed. If you need some cards, you know where to go. Promo code ThrabenU to let them know that I sent you, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya!